Welcome to Exploring Nature with Children. This week we're doing all about wildflowers. You probably already know what a flower is, with its pretty petals attracting insects so it can help it reproduce. But what does it mean to be a wildflower? What does it mean to be wild? Can you think of any times when you use the word wild? So what does being wild mean to you? And what do you think a wildflower is? For a flower to be a wildflower, you could say it's just allowed to grow freely in nature without any human intervention. So when you plant plants in pots, they are actually being cultivated by humans, so they're flowers and not wildflowers. Whereas here behind me, you might be able to see a few of the purple flowers that are going wildly in nature. So we've found some really pretty wildflowers here that are just growing freely without any humans helping them or cultivating them, and they're just wild. If you live in a town, can you still find wildflowers? Are all the flowers been planted and looked after by humans, or are flowers there growing in the wild? Now here I found some nettles and they've got flowers on. So would you class those as a wildflower, or are they a weed? What do you think the difference is between a wildflower and a weed? Wildflowers are beautiful to find out in all the grass with these bursts of colour, and we're using our spring flower hunt checklist as we've been going along to learn some of the names and look closer at the features of flowers. When you find wildflowers, it's a good idea just to leave them where they are and not touch them or pick them. What you can do is most of us carry around a phone in our pockets and use the camera on your phone to go around taking pictures of the flowers you find. This is really good for children because it actually practices their fine motor skills, holding the camera steady as they do it and learning how to focus carefully on the different aspects of the flower they want in the picture. When you get home, you can always turn these into images, printing them out and then getting children to cut them out as a collage, or you could edit them on the computer using some computer skills to make some really beautiful pictures of wildflowers. When you look closer at flowers, you'll start to notice more and more about them, especially if you're doing photography of them. You can start to notice some of the differences, and you'll notice more about the little bits inside. And that's what helps a flower reproduce. I'm going to show you this in more detail doing a flower dissection. You can do your own flower dissection following the twinkle sheets, and it's got one specifically designed for home educators to use. Here we're going to take a closer look at a flower with a flower dissection. So we're using shop-bought daffodils, and you need to be really careful with whichever plant you're using if you decide to do this, and I highly recommend following the twinkle instructions because it also goes through some of the risks of doing this yourself at home. First of all, have a good look at a flower, and then you can remove some of the petals to have a book that you might find similar to in a textbook. You can start to see the outer petals as well as some of the inner features such as the stamen and carpel. You can have a closer look at them very carefully using a knife or tweezers to start to see the stamen and carpel in the middle. As you go along, we can stick some parts down. So we've stuck down our petals and labelled those. Next, we're going to cut off one of the stamens, and then you've got the anther at the top where the pollen is found and the filament. This is where a bee would go to get some pollen onto it. And we can have a closer look with our microscope to see some of the pollen that's on the anther and what it looks like under a microscope. If we continue our dissection very carefully, we're then going to remove the other stamen parts and very carefully cut the carpel in half. We can then have a closer look at the half of the carpel, again using our microscope. We can start looking at the top, the stigma, where the pollen would go, following down through the style and then actually seeing some ovules in the ovary. We can also look at a different flower to compare this. So again, this is a shop-bought tulip, and you can see we have a very similar picture to the one on the daffodil. However, there are some differences. We can look at the pollen and see how that looks different on the anther, And cutting open the carpel, we can see inside. This again is a different shape, and we can look with our microscope to see where the pollen is at the top on the stigma, following the style down into the ovaries. And if you look really carefully, you can see some of the ovules in the middle there. While we're out and about on our wildflower hunt, I'm going to give you a 3, 2, 1 challenge for things for you to hunt for. You could do this outside while you're out on a walk, or you could do it at home using books and the internet. So can you find 3 different types of wildflower? Bonus points if you could name them. Can you spot 2 differences between those wildflowers? So you'll need to look really carefully. Maybe the colours are different, or the petals, or even the petal shapes. And finally, can you spot 1 insect pollinating those flowers? Daisies are a flower you can often find in your garden, and I'm going to show you how to make a beautiful daisy chain using paper. This is from the Twinkle website, where you'll also find lots of other wonderful flower craft activities for you to enjoy at home. For our spring flowers paper chain, you'll need some glue, scissors and different coloured paper. You can either print these from Twinkle or draw on the lines yourself. You'll need to cut up strips of 2 different colours and some circles for the centre. So we've got our petal strips, leaf strips and centre circles. What you want to do is start by putting a bit of glue at one end of your petal strips coloured paper, and then make 6 of these little loops. So put glue at one end and then stick it down the other end, and then repeat that 6 times. Then glue those 6 loops together to make your daisy shape. Then you want to stick on one of the circles in the middle to make your daisy. If you'd like to be able to see both sides, then you can put one on each side. Once you've made lots of these, you can get one of your leaf strips and loop it through one of your petals, putting a bit of glue on, and then loop it through another of your petals on a different flower you have made to join the 2 flowers together, and then keep going for as many daisies as you've got to make a beautiful daisy paper chain. Let's finish it with a wildflower quiz to see how much attention you are paying. So which flower is this? Daisy, daffodil, daffodil? That is correct. What about this one? Is it a daffodil, bluebell or snowdrop? You're right, it's a snowdrop. What about this one? Pansy, cornflower, daisy? We try cornflower? Correct, well done if you got that right. Tulip, pansy or buttercup? Oh, this one's a bit trickier. Pansy, yep, that is correct. So this time we've got, is it lavender, a pansy or a sunflower? We're trying lavender, yep, that's correct. And what about this flower? You might have spotted this one in our video. Yep, it's a daisy. This one's a bit trickier. Dog rose, daisy or pansy? Well done if you got that right. And then finally, daisy, sunflower or buttercup? Going with buttercup. And well done. Thank you so much for joining me as we have gone out exploring some beautiful wildflowers. We hope you have as much fun exploring wildflowers. Do share what you get up to in our Home Educators Facebook group. You'll find the link below. And we look forward to seeing you again soon for more exploring nature fun.